Are you okay, Virgil? Mike?
Yep, I'm here. I've got a fan on in my room, so I'm gonna have to go with some earbuds.
Do we have a quorum yet? Not seeing the other board members.
I don't believe we have one just yet.
All right, well, we'll get there.
I don't know.
Oh, I thought you were moving something.
No.
Oh, Margaret's here. All right, now, Catherine and Johnny. Okay, connecting to Jim, but not yet. That's here.
Who's that with you, Jane?
Melissa's here. She's our
Hi.
flag holder for tonight when we get started. I feel like I should have a warm-up monologue as we wait for the rest of the board.
Angie, this is Clay. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can.
Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. Angie, have you heard if anyone's having trouble logging in?
Yep, Deanne emailed me just a moment ago, and I just sent her the link about
Okay,
maybe 3 minutes ago, so
okay.
hopefully it'll be on soon. And then we should be ready to go.
All right. Catherine says she's having trouble getting it to load too. Is maybe Deani here? The 805 number?
Hi, this is Deani.
Hi, Deani.
I'm only on.
All right, just
Yeah, I'm
making
only
sure
on.
we have a quorum. All right, since we do have a quorum and Catherine will be joining us shortly, this meeting for the town of Green Mountain Falls will come to order. The time is 7:08. All trustees are present except Catherine, who is coming, and trustee Quinn. If you'll please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. There's Catherine. I am just pulling up the agenda here so I know what I'm doing. And it's a little slow to load, but we're used to that. If you'll just hold on just a minute, I'm getting it to load and then we can proceed. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda as presented?
I have one.
All right,
I apologize, the item 3B, that Kirkpatrick Family Fund Grant Award Acceptance, that contract is still in legal review and I wasn't able to get that in the packet. And I just missed that typo there, but we got the award.
well, I'm glad we have the award, and so we'll know that's pending, and we will keep that up there for next time. If isn't anything further, I would move to approve the agenda as corrected.
Again.
That was Deani, second. All those in favor, vote by saying aye,
Aye.
Hi.
and that motion passes. Item 3 is the consent agenda, which is bring into record accounts payable for May 30th through June 15th. Do any board members have an item they need to bring out for discussion?
I do. I noticed that there were a lot of, it looked to me like refunds. I just want to clarify.
Yeah,
Like the 400, 200, 200, is that all refunds because of events being canceled?
so the business license, that was a double charge. They paid online and then they came in and they paid again. So, but the gazebo rentals were refunded just because of the COVID,
Sure.
unable to host people, and we gave them their money back. Just felt it was the right thing to do.
Thank you. That's what I thought it was, but I just wanted to clarify.
And there is one addition. There's a $150 check for the purchase of a water pump that isn't on this list, but we did catch that one at the last minute, toss it in.
Okay, anything further? I would move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
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 That motion passes. Item 4, new business. Item A, resolution 2020-09, a resolution of the town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado, designating authorized signatories on town bank accounts and individuals authorized to conduct banking online on behalf of town. As I understand it, we had to remove Nathan. Is that the only change?
Yep, that's all that does is just remove Nathan from the accounts.
Move to approve.
Second.
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
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 That motion passes. Item B, resolution 2020-10, a resolution of the town of Green Mountain Falls making appointment of town officials. Angie, you have some background for us on that?
Yep, so this one is just vacating the position appointment of the town clerk treasurer because Nathan's not with us anymore. So it's just showing that that's vacated. Just another housekeeping item.
All right, move to approve.
I'll second.
Second.
There's no further discussion. All those in favor vote by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. Item 4C, consideration of revocable permit resolution 2020-11, non-exclusive revocable license agreement, 10550 UPass Avenue. Angie, what about that one?
Okay, so we've got Julia here on the line to speak to that one. She's got the memo for you on these next
Great.
items.
All right.
If we can get her on.
Can you, Madam Mayor, can you hear me?
I can barely hear you, but I can hear you.
Okay, I'm having a hard time with this.
There's better.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Would it be better if I shared the memo, or would you like me just to give a short introduction? I believe the applicant is here.
All right, we have the memo. If you just want to give some background on it.
Sorry, I'm doing 6 things and I'm only good at doing half of a thing. So this is a revocable permit that came to the Planning Commission back in April. We apologize for the delay, but there have been extenuating circumstances. The applicant is the painted bear, Mike Fry, whom I believe is here, but I'll focus. They applied for a revocable permit to occupy the right-of-way for their septic tanks or septic tank storage and for grade at cover. That is the scope of the permit.
All right, board, do you have any questions for either Julia or for Mr. Fry?
So I do have a question. As far as the right of way, are we replacing just covers or are we actually talking septic work? Because I read through it, but
Okay.
that was like 5 hours ago. So
Okay.
it was like a day ago.
I'll speak to what I know, and then I can unmute Mike
Okay.
Fry.
And I guess let me let you know what my concern is. If there's work that needs to be done, what will happen and how will that impede traffic in front of that area?
Okay, so the applicant had septic inspection. It's probably best that I have him speak to it, but the applicant did have inspections. As far as I know, there won't be, well, I'll have the applicant speak to that. I apologize, Trustee Peterson. I'm trying to do 6 things.
That's okay.
Mr. Fry was here. And it said Mike and Margaret. He may have been having a hard time getting into the
We could could maybe reserve until they have an opportunity to get back on the meeting.
So they were trying to get in and I kept hitting admit, but I think that there are some Zoom issues right now. So I can email him right now and mute myself.
Okay, we could maybe we could reserve until we're able to get them back in the meeting.
Thank you.
Yes.
Let's do it, and then we can clarify. All right, let me move back up to the agenda. So we will wait until they come on. Item D is Planning Commission recommendations to Board of Trustees, both regular members and alternate vacancies. So there were 2 vacancies and there were 4 applicants. And board, you've had a chance to look at the applicants. And I'm just following along with you to want to ask you, board, what questions do you have to either the applicants or to Planning Commission?
Well,
This is, I just have a question of, planning commission to select the other.
can you
Yeah,
type
Gianni,
your question?
Was that Gianni? She's breaking up pretty
Yeah.
badly.
My question was just if we have any background information from the planning commission on the reasons why they selected the 2 that they're recommending over the other 2.
All right, heard your question. I concur, we'd like to have some background on that. Jake, do you want to address that, why you chose the 2 you did over the 2 you did not?
I think he's on mute.
Mr. Bratton, you've been taken off of mute. If you would unmute yourself.
Hello. Hello.
Hi, Dick. Can you please
Yes.
address the board and let them know why the planning commission chose the 2 they chose?
Okay. All 4 applicants appeared before us at the planning commission meeting, and we were able to set up an interview process, which allowed the commissioners to ask them questions, and the applicants could respond, and they could also add to the information they put in their application. And then we allowed the applicants to ask the commissioners what the job was all about, to see if they understood what they're getting into. And it was a very nice interview. We learned a lot. And then we decided to, amongst ourselves, pick the top 2 applicants to fill the vacancies. And we did that. And as you can see, the top 2 were Todd Dixon .
So I have a question because one of the applicants has experience with marketing and land development
Yes.
and working with master plan communities.
Yes.
So on paper, this applicant seems very more qualified than a couple of the others.
We were curious about that, so I asked the applicant what her actual work was, and she was working for a financial institution, not working for a developer. So it was a little misleading. She came out 3rd.
That just doesn't seem to be the information that we saw, Dick. I mean, even when I attended the meeting, I didn't hear anything about financial company.
No, that was on her application.
No, I don't see that on the application. So yeah, it just seems to me that this one applicant is more qualified for planning to understand what
Okay.
needs to happen by looking at this.
I'm looking at her application now. She says, I have experience from the marketing side of land development, working with La Plata Investments in Colorado Springs. They built Cordera, Pine Creek, and other master plan communities on the north side of Springs. When I chatted with her, it was obvious that she did not work for a developer. She worked for a financial institution. Is Nancy
So
intends
she doesn't, are you saying that she doesn't have the knowledge involved for planning?
some knowledge, but not extensive. She didn't
Okay.
do
Well,
hands-on
she's
work.
the only one that, she's the only one on the applications that had any indication of planning experience at all. So that's why we're asking. That's why I'm asking.
We
Nick,
understood that. That's why we asked her specific questions. And we did consider her experience, but she ranked 3rd out of 4.
Can I chime in as well?
Sure.
So we had 4 strong candidates. Nancy was certainly among them. The 2 that we selected had done the most homework and were most familiar with the comprehensive plan and also with the paperwork process and requirements of things built. We just have a new homeowner who just had a lot developed, and that included a drainage and erosion control plan. The other gentleman that we elected is vastly familiar with the comprehensive plan. And it's no disrespect to Nancy, she eminently qualified as well. But those were the 2 that we selected as best suited for the openings.
The other question I had is, it was put forth that we may have the opportunity to have alternates. Did you ask the candidates who were not selected if they would be willing to be alternates if that were to come to pass?
Jane, you were there when we asked them, would they volunteer for another committee? Both of them said they would like to work in some capacity.
Dick, I was there, but I'm asking this on behalf of the board and the board meeting so that everyone understands that the opportunities that have or have not been offered. So of course I want that to come out in this public meeting to know if there's a chance to be an alternate, if they could be an alternate for planning, or if there's other opportunities. You did offer that, but I would like it to be out in the public at a public meeting, and that's why I asked again.
Okay, Adam Peters, who was 4th in the voting, said he would be interested in the fire mitigation committee. That was his second choice. Nancy said she would be glad to work in any capacity.
Nancy, I can see
We
that.
did not pick any alternates because at our time of our meeting, alternates were not authorized yet. They're in a proposed resolution. Now, how the resolution comes out could give the board guidance on whether they want to invite them to be alternates. I don't think we'd have any objection about either one of them being an alternate.
Okay,
But that was not on our table at the time.
okay, that's where I wanted to get to with that.
Okay.
All right, so board, the question before you. This was amazing. I turned and I got a picture. The wonders of Zoom technology. Let me get back to the agenda. The question before you is the Planning Commission recommendation. The planning has recommended 2 candidates that they feel are qualified. The question is, board, do you wish to approve their recommendation?
This is Danny. I don't see any reason not to approve it. I just had wanted some background on how the ranking selection process was developed, and I think we've received some of that.
All right, so is that a
I'd
motion?
like to say thank you to Rocco for giving us some more clarity on the selection process.
Great, I agree with that. Margaret, is that a second?
Oh, yes, second.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
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 The motion passes. I saw that the fries were on, so let's move back to item C, consideration of revocable permit, resolution 2020-11, non-exclusive revocable license agreement 10550 UPass Avenue. Margaret, you had a question for Mr. Fry?
And that was like 10 minutes ago, so I didn't write it down. So yeah, my question is, depending on the work that needs to be done, what, if anything, will happen to impede any of the movement or the traffic in front of that area?
Well, all we're going to do now, if this is approved, is put some AstroTurf between the parking and the sidewalk. It'd be right over the top of the septic tanks. And it's right now it's weeds and dirt, and we just want to cover it up with something that'll look more attractive, and we won't have to mow it and water it. So it's about a 5-foot space, about 38 feet long. It's between the sidewalk and the parking.
Oh, good, thank you. For some reason, I misinterpreted and thought that there was going to be septic work. So that's why I was asking, so.
No, the septic is already in. It was put in 82, and we had it inspected and new risers and new lids on it. And it was brought up to code. There's no air leaks, no water leaks. So over the top of the septics, there are 2 lids in that 5 by 38 foot space. Right now we have one kind of an old oak barrel planter on one of them, and another oak barrel planter down a ways, but we're gonna plan on covering that dirt and rock and weeds with either AstroTurf or landscape rock of some kind. I don't know whether the town has a preference, but whatever the town prefers, we'll put on it and cover the cost of that. We just want to make it a little more attractive.
Okay, thank you.
Or if you have any further questions for either Julia or for Mr. Fry? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I'll second.
I didn't even hear a motion, so. if
Oh,
there's no-
sorry, so I'll move to approve or whatever, you know, whatever the motion needs to be. I will move to,
Approve consideration of revocable
Yes.
permit 2020-11?
yes.
All right. There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second. That's Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine. If there is no further discussion, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
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 And that motion passes. The next item on
Thank
the
you.
agenda is item
Thank you.
5, old business. Was I hearing something? Item 5, old business, rough draft, a new website preview.
Okay, that one's me. I just want to highlight that we've been working on in the background here, we've been working on a new website project with our partner SIPA, the State Internet Portal Authority, and Colorado Interactive. It's an effort that the contract is actually through the state, so we get this service for free. And our website is currently with SIPA, so we came up for renewal, and anyway, I'll get on with the preview. Julia, can you pop up or can I share?
Angie, you're the host. You can share your screen.
Oh my goodness, imagine that. Look at that. Sorry. There we go. So here is this is just a sneak preview of what the website looks like right now. They just completed the migration phase. which is basically just a line for line, picture for picture transport onto the new platform. And Jesse over at Greenbox Arts has offered to send us some really beautiful photos, but we'd be happy to receive photos from the community as well. We can change these all out and make it look really, really bright and fresh and new, and be a reflection of the community. So one thing I'd like to highlight, there's this logo here that came out of the comprehensive planning process. If the board doesn't like that, we can certainly change it back, but this was just, it came through the comprehensive planning process, and it just was kind of a fresh little graphic. In general, this is right now just a base, like I said, line for line, picture for picture transport into the new platform. The new platform does have a lot of extra features in it, so we will have better navigation, and that's going to be improved over the next month before we fully go live with the project. And so hopefully it'll, be good for tourism and all those things too. So that's exciting.
It's nice. I'm glad that it has the old logo and the new logo. I think that's nice. Nice touch there.
And anyway, just a brief overview, and then I can tell you about the fire mitigation effort next if you'd like. If anybody has any questions or anything about the website, I'd be happy to take questions, or if you have suggestions for improvement, something to think on, and feel free to email me pictures or anything.
All right, great. All right, if there's no questions, let's move on to the fire mitigation.
So the fire mitigation, we did a courtesy chipping service. The Public Works team spent their Sunday, this past Sunday. We collected 23 pickup loads of slash. The Sunday prior, we did try or the Saturday prior on June 6th, we did try to have the event. We unfortunately got rained out, but we did pick up 9 truckloads of slash before that happened. After everything was processed, it was 32 total pickup truckloads full of slash, and that translated into 3 dump truckloads full of mulch that we were able to donate to our Woodland Park neighbors for their wastewater treatment facility. And we will be having, if anybody missed that event, we'll be having another one come September. So September 12th, we're anticipating from 10 to 2 p.m. and there's a rain date of September 26th. And there's a flyer there and everything, and that's been posted around town in a few places and whatnot. So tell your friends.
Well, it sounds like you got a pretty good participation. That's great. And it's just part of what we need to keep doing as good neighbors, and remembering to fire mitigate and, get rid of our slash appropriately and not dumping it, because dumping it has been a problem and we don't want that either.
And I'd like to thank Rocco for putting a bug in my ear about just working on organizing that event. And he did a lot of the legwork with the Woodland Park facility to get the donations over there, and it was super helpful. So I appreciate that we could work together on that.
That's great. That's great. And it was good that our employees were willing to do that. So that, people don't realize that they give their time to just help the town, because so many of us work during the week. We almost don't think about them. So that's a big deal. And I'm glad they did that. And if you would just convey our appreciation.
Absolutely.
May I ask a question about the planning commission, please?
All right.
You named one of the new planning commissioners, not the other. I think it's appropriate that if they're going to be put on the planning commission, that you ought to name both, just in case somebody's listening that would like to know. I would be one of those.
So the appointment was for Sean Ives and for Todd Dixon.
Sean Ives and Todd Dixon. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. That's a good point of order, and can't presume that everyone knows what I'm thinking, as they should. The last item under old business is consideration of ordinance 2020-03 and ordinance amending chapter 2 of the Green Mountain Falls Municipal Code concerning boards, committees, and commissions. Angie, would you introduce this, please?
Absolutely. So I wanted to start off by just saying that town staff recommendations are not to favor or to undermine any committee or any individual. The draft recommendations are focused first and foremost in public health and safety and to ensure the proper management of public lands and to comply with open meeting laws. Administration, personnel, elected officials, and appointed member rules are openly and transparently codified in the new Section 2 of the GMF Municipal Code, the draft that you see here. An ordinance is required. A resolution is not sufficient, and that's per our attorney. Public trails, parks, and open space must be managed so that our insurance provider and/or town attorney will continue to represent us. As good stewards of the town, it's our job to continue to protect the citizens and visitors who use our public spaces, as well as maintaining a safe, open environment for all of our volunteers. We want to make sure your work is covered under our insurance. It was never the intent for this administrative housekeeping item to become political or contentious. The Trails Committee has been a very successful and dedicated group of volunteers, and I want to recognize that. We'd really like them to continue their hard work on the public lands. It's because of these volunteer positions that the town continues to operate on a tight budget, and we commend everyone for the hundreds of hours, literally hundreds of hours that they give to GMF. And in introducing this matter, I want to be very clear on that we appreciate it. The tone of the comments collected, I felt gave the perception contrary to the gratitude that we have for all of our volunteers and all of our committees. And again, this is just a housekeeping item to ensure that we're in compliance with the rule of law.
All right. Now we had discussed that this could be a time for a public hearing, and we don't have that listed on the agenda, but I have the feeling that most people want to comment on this more than they do any other item not on the agenda.
I did get 11 requests.
So with 11 requests, you are limited to 3 minutes apiece. And I'm asking the board, I would prefer that the public spoke first, and then we could respond after hearing. And if that's all right with you, I would open the floor to public comment. And Angie, I think you were the one who were in charge of saying who's going first. You probably have the list.
I have a list here just in the order of the requests. The first requester was Dick Bratton. So Mr. Bratton, if you would please just state your name and address for the record.
I'm Dick Bratton. I live at 11190 Hondo Avenue for the last 36 years, happily. And I did submit 2-page comments on the proposed ordinance. They are in the packet for you to review, and I would appreciate your consideration.
All right, thank you.
The next one on the list is Rocco Blasi.
Hi, Rocco Blasi, 10955 Belvedere Avenue. I've lived here since 2006. Trustees, good evening. I hope you've had a chance to review the Trails Committee response in your agenda packet. So this is what we think. And tonight I'm going to share with you how I feel about this proposed change. Bear with me. Trustees, you'll see the town manager recommendation in the staff report to approve this ordinance on the basis of it being a housekeeping item. Housekeeping item drastically oversimplifies the disruptive changes this ordinance proposes to the makeup of the Trails Committee. For it proposes removing voting rights from over half the committee and proposes removing our dedicated non-resident volunteers. We respect you, the trustees, for dedicating your time and energy to this community. However, we do not respect whatever process was attempted in developing this draft ordinance. Comments tonight from the affected committees were only sought as an afterthought at the specific request from a committee member. This lack of coordination is both inefficient and troubling. Our simple premise: if an action is being considered that affects a board or committee, it will be coordinated with us. I heard the word teamwork mentioned at a recent trustee meeting. Teamwork, a wise and noble goal, yet hindered by how this draft ordinance has been handled. For it seems the changes proposed in this draft specifically target your Trails Committee, the only board or committee with more than 5 voting members, some living in our neighboring communities. I wonder at the motivation behind this. 3 questions are pertinent to this draft. What perceived problem do these changes set out to fix? How do these changes benefit the town? And at what cost? For there will be a cost. Are these proposed changes worth alienating the input of your volunteer committee members? As mentioned in the formal Trails Committee response, as currently written, the ordinance does not provide what has worked well for our group for over a decade. This is a disruptive proposal. You have 11 dedicated, passionate Trails Committee members. As pointed out by a fellow Green Mountain Falls resident not on the committee, clearly, if the committee benefits from people who know and use the trails but don't live here, the town should take advantage of their support. Our current 11 Trails Committee members have given Green Mountain Falls decades of service, thousands of volunteer hours, and hundreds of thousands of dollars of work accomplished, all at no cost to the town or the taxpayer. These 11 members are intimately familiar with the Green Mountain Falls Trails Network. Most have built a portion themselves and have tasted the dirt while doing it. Our Trails Committee deal with calloused hands, sweat-stained clothes, sore backs, and blistered feet, so you don't have to. Last year's comprehensive plan community input confirmed the importance of trails to our community. Trails were second only in mention to Gazelle Lake in the top 10 response themes. Same for the question, what do we love about Green Mountain Falls?
I'm sorry, but you're waiting 3 minutes.
I'm wrapping up. The former and current members of the Trails Committee have provided our community a world-class trail system. In return, we don't ask for fame or for your thanks. We, the Trails Committee, ask for something far simpler, yet so much more profound. And it's eminently in your power to grant. We, the Trails Committee, ask to be left alone. Leave our 11 voting committee members, residents both in and around Green Mountain Falls, alone to carry on our good works. You will not regret it.
Great, thank you. Who is next?
Next, we have Clay Gafford.
Hi, Clay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, gotcha.
I'm here to comment on the trails myself. Mostly I'll start with the hikers and the parking problem. We're having over 100 cars a day in town, which is way too many for this little town. There's no parking available for the businesses. People go into the pantry and ask them where they can park. There's no toilets in town. And so you get 100 cars in town, 3 or 4 people per car. That's 300 or 400 people. Where are they going to the bathroom? We have 1 toilet in town and it's shut down because of COVID, but it doesn't work anyway. It's nothing more than an outhouse, a glorified outhouse. So we have all these people coming to town and no place for them to go. Then there also is the trash, the problem on the trails. There's tons of trash on the trails. Most of them have dogs, so they're up there with the dog and they've been taking the bags out of the doggy things, but you find them laying next to the trail. They're everywhere up there. Toilet paper along the trails is just a flippin' mess. And then one of the biggest problems that I feel that we have is the town's not gaining anything for it. We have hikers coming to town. A few of them go to the restaurant, a few of them go to the bars. Mostly they go in to use their restroom, according to the business owners. And we don't make anything. If we're gonna have that many hikers in town, we need to start charging them and make some money on it. 100 cars in town at $10 each, we could make $1,000 a day off of the non-residents coming to town to enjoy our trails. But the main thing that I got a real issue with is the Trails Committee and their blatant trespassing. I've spoken to Dick Bratton about this numerous times. Well, let me start off. I've been here since 1961. And the Mount Dewey Trail, I own the top of the mountain. And you guys are trespassing on my property. You've built new trails up to the old Mount Dewey Trail, and you're putting out trail maps that shows trails on private property, my private property. One, I know for sure, and I know of 2 or 3 more private property that I'm not sure if you've gotten permission, but you're showing trails on your map crossing private property. And that's not right. That has got to come to an end. At this point here, I am considering legal action against the town and against the Trails Committee. Where do you get off building, maintaining, and publicizing trails on private property for the good of the town? Nobody in town wants it. The majority of the people in town are fed up with the hikers. There are signs on the side of the road, handmade paper signs by people urging the hikers to pick up their dog poop. I drove up and down the main roads today and counted over 40 different no trespassing, no parking signs. People are parking everywhere, and we need to do something about it. We need to rein the Trails Committee in. We don't need 1 million trails. And secondly, if I cannot come to an agreement with the town to build some fences and do some signage on the trail on my property, the lawsuit is going through. And I hope to have set up a meeting with you, Jane, and we can discuss this, because I'm fed up with it. And the Trails Committee does what they want. They don't talk to nobody about it. And that's not right. And it's not even, the locals don't like it. And we'll see in court, because that's where it's coming to. My 3 minutes is up.
Thanks, Clay. All right, who's next?
Next on, I've got Dave Bowers. Dave, would you please state your name and address for the record? If he got bumped out, oh, there he is.
David, if you can hear, you need to unmute yourself.
Thank you.
All right, we'll come back to David.
Okay.
Who is next?
Next one is Mike Barrett. Mike, if you'd please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, just a second here. Hi, I'm Michael Barrett, and I live at 10610 Green Mountain Falls Road. I've lived out here for almost 30 years. Okay. So I've kind of typed this out. I'm probably not going to be very popular either, but I've read the meeting agenda and saw passionate notes and letters from folks that are in support of the current Trails Committee. I came to realize their long-term dedication to the area. Most said to leave the Trails Committee alone as it is. I can always agree with passion, but I'm trying to figure out the joy of building more and more trails while having Green Mountain Falls literally invaded by day hikers from out of our area. I realized that COVID-19 made Green Mountain Falls an attractive area to get out and about, but it seems the word is spread like wildfire. In other words, the cat's out of the bag, it seems. Again, these folks are here for the day only, and that they have no skin in the game, and most will contribute zero to the community and then move on. I cannot blame them for wanting to just park, hike, and roll, but the beauty of Green Mountain Falls is exactly the point of why we all love living here. Don't we all feel an obligation to continue that and not ruin it for ourselves by welcoming a flood of outsiders? I'm not trying to be obtuse, and and say invaded because the huge amount of cars and people feels more like a busy city than the bedroom community that I've loved for over 30 years. We've all been recently seen the cars by the pool, all the way down past the lake, behind the bridge near the Serenity Club. I've got a question, what's so great about that? We live and walk here locally, and we see there's literally no place for people to park on the weekends. It's that full. For me, that's no reason to celebrate. And what happens when summer actually gets here, and then the people that pay to play here can't even park by the lake or the town. Literally, they can't. All of these day hikers have led to greater traffic on our streets, more trash, more foot traffic, illegal parking, even more speeding past the speed limit blinking signs than ever before, leaving dog poop bags on our streets and overall crowding. Not to mention no real public restrooms to support the influx of day hikers. That's a real problem because it's a basic human function. I myself have seen people pull on the door and pull, and the bathrooms are locked. So what do? They crawl under the bridge. Excuse me. Again, what is the goal? My question is, other than the overall self-satisfaction and self-pride of some, what is the actual attraction and benefit for our citizens who actually live here? But we should create a super convenient area for others to enjoy. I'd like to go on record and say that more and more is not a good thing, but rather, as they say, less is more. It's not that I hate change, but I also look for the benefits of change for the good of the local people that have lived here forever. If more hikers is a thing than the majority wants, I cannot see why. But if it must be, the town should consider parking kiosks for non-residents and non-GMF vacationers staying in the area. If we have to deal with the new normal that allows the town budget to benefit from it. This type of parking system works well in other areas and used to create revenue to pay for road maintenance, additional policing, adequate functioning restrooms, and fixing underfunded town repairs of signs, fencing, guardrails, and more. As mentioned, if we had 365, 24/7 cops, it would give the current ones a break, a breather, as well as the ability to police the town with the influx of people coming in and all the extra road traffic that's associated with that, and the private property trespassing. As it increases, perhaps more policing will indeed be required to handle crimes or disturbances. We don't know. Crazy times. And could it even slow down the dangerous drivers speeding excessively in a 25-mile-an-hour zone? This would be by issuing citations to encourage their compliance. To that point, I myself saved 2 young boys from potentially being hit by a speeding truck near the West Pool just 2 days ago, and it was very close. They just speed like crazy around here. So all in all, unless there's a projected amount of income associated to welcome even more hikers, I'm wondering why we should be so eager to build even more trails and attract even more day hikers in this wonderful town. So my opinion is, if we're going to have more people, let's think about these parking kiosks that we can try to benefit from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Who is next, Angie? Oh, let's go back to David Bowers, see if we can hear him.
Hello, it's David Bowers. I've lived here for 25 years, and I didn't really prepare a speech, but I'm certainly not in favor of all the extra cars in town, all the people on the trails, and the bags of dog waste. So fairly short and straight to the point. I would prefer less people in town. It's one of the reasons I moved to Green Mountain Falls.
All right, Mr. Bowers, thank you. Angie, who's next?
Next up, we have Brian Johnson. Brian, if you'd please state your name and address for the record.
I'm looking for him and I don't.
We can come back to him if he gets back in. It looks like he might not be on right now. But next up, we've got Jennifer Forbes.
Jennifer is not here. She wasn't feeling well.
Okay. And then Mac Patrone.
Hi, Mac Patrone here. I'm a resident. I live at 10840 Myrtle Street, across from the trailhead that's off of Myrtle Street. Been here since 1977. Been on the Planning Commission and the Board of Trustees. I was associated with the maintenance department for over 20 years. There was a time when we only had trails along Catamount Creek where the there was a gate, there still is a gate at the end of Belvedere and one at the end of Hondo Street that our maintenance people would open every morning and close every evening. They had a 55-gallon drum collecting trash at the falls. We got to the point where we had to lock the gates and keep them locked because people were driving up, having a picnic and leaving their trash. At a time when Tim Carcel was the maintenance manager, they were spending at least 2 trips a day picking up exchanging 55-gallon drums at the falls and picking up the trash that was left around them after they were full. Hikers aren't bad people, but they're human. They're not angels, they're human. They make mistakes. They park where they shouldn't. I can attest that they park at Myrtle Street right next to the sign that says no parking for hikers. Sometimes 3 abreast. That needs to stop. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people walk down the minute that they get off of Catamount Street. They take the dog off the leash and he's free to go and do whatever he wants. And I'd have to agree with Clay. There are many times where I find power bar wrappers, sandwich bags that get blown off the mountainside down onto private property. And frankly, I think if you were to canvass the entire neighborhood from Ute Pass Avenue across from the swimming pool all the way to the top here, you would find that the vast majority of those people would never like to see a hiker again. They're fed up and you can't blame them. If you would spend the time canvassing the mess that is the trail system, then I think you'd see it in a different light. One more thing before I end. I'm concerned that the Trails Committee, in doing work on private property, may put the town in jeopardy as far as their insurance is concerned, because no one who represents the town should be working on private property. So I would recommend highly that you speak to your insurance carrier and find out exactly where you stand there, because it's likely if somebody falls and breaks a leg or breaks an arm or dies up there, we live in a sue happy society and they will come after you as well as the property owner. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Matt.
Okay, next on the list, we have Dominique Turnball.
Tom, are you on here? I don't see Dom.
I don't see it. Next on the list, we have Darlene Jensen.
Do you see Darlene?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Well, first, thank you very much for having me this evening. I just wanted to talk about some activities that we undertook this weekend, my husband and I, in town, and as volunteers. And I want to thank, first of all the volunteers that help Green Mountain Falls and the region in multiple capacities. Because I can tell you, there's a lot of work, blood, sweat, and tears that does go into maintaining and helping our community, as well as the elected officials. Thank you very much for your service. This is all volunteer, and I really do appreciate it. As a 20-year resident, I live at 9005 Mountain Road, Chipeta Park, Colorado, so I'm unincorporated, but Green Mountain Falls has been our home for 20 years now. And I just want to let you know that we were able to go into town, sweep, clean up a lot of the road grit and sweep the sidewalks in front of all of the businesses, Painted Bear, Mucky Duck, in front of Pantry, down in front of Blue Moose. And in addition to doing a lot of weeding, we planted flowers. I was able to visit with almost all of the business owners when we did that over the weekend. and they were truly appreciative. And this was our pleasure, by the way. And town, yes, was full. We did get a lot of comments from people thanking us for attending to the town and cleaning it up. I did want to speak about putting up some bunting in town. I would like, I know in the past there's been bunting, and I'm not certain what the plan is for patriotic bunting, but we also put little flags in some of the flower bins around town, and it was Flag Day, and the folks commented how, again, appreciative they were of the flags. So we'd like to, if it's okay with the city, and I can certainly visit further about this, purchase bunting, and my husband and I would be responsible for putting it up and taking it down in certain areas, and purchasing that, and we can purchase very tasteful bunting as well.
All right. Go ahead, Darlene. That's a good one to bring up with Angie. Give her a call at Town Hall, and then go ahead with what you were saying.
Sure, Jane, thank you. And then lastly, I am volunteering to serve this year as the vendor coordinator for the Bronx Day Festival. It's July 5th, I believe, 25th, excuse me, last Saturday of the month. Very low key, scaled way back, taking the vendors down to 20. No food vendors, because we really want to drive those vendors, those folks attending, into the businesses. I've spoken with the businesses about this year. They're thrilled, because obviously all of them took a hit, and they're very happy to set up what needs to be presented for Bronx Days. Again, all of them respecting the guidelines as set forth on the COVID guidelines. So that's all I have at this time, and I'm having the pleasure to work with Margaret and Emily on that committee, and thank you so very much. I welcome any questions.
Well, thank you for taking that on. We do appreciate it. And I'm glad you're going to coordinate that activity with Angie. And thank you for working on the committee for Bronx Day, because that's very exciting. Even scale back, it's nice to know that we'll have a nice little town event going on.
You're welcome.
And then we have one more here, Claudia Ellie.
Claudia, are you on?
Yeah, I don't see her in the list.
You don't see Claudia either.
Oh, there she is. There she is. I think you have to unmute yourself, Claudia.
Okay.
There you go.
Yes, I'm a full-time resident of Green Mountain Falls. I live on Garfield Avenue, which little dead end nobody else knows, but it's up on Crystal Creek. I've been here full-time since 1975. I am a longtime member of the Trails Committee. And I am very interested hearing the objections to the growth of the trails, and I agree with many of them. However, I don't think the reorganization of the Trails Committee addresses that in any way. One thing that occurs to me is we have on our agenda at every meeting opportunity for people of the public to join us. And it is a rare occurrence that this ever happens. And I wish we could work together with some of these people. I agree very much with the problems of the overcrowding and the parking. And I would like to be able to address some of those problems when some of the public enters with us. However, I don't see any value in releasing or throwing out, I'll be honest, our non-resident members that contribute so much to helping with these problems. That's it.
All right, Claudia, thank you so much. Angie, did we miss anyone? Does anyone come back?
I think that was everybody except for Brian Johnson and Dominique Turnbull.
All right, and I didn't see
Don't
either
think
one of
they're-
those. All right, so we will close the public hearing on this. And I want to make a statement. I was making notes, and I've made a lot of notes from all the letters that we received in public comment about the Trails Committee. And before I go into the problems, which I also have something to say about, the Trails Committee themselves quite often describe themselves as passionate, dedicated, fiercely independent. They like to build trails, opposed to reorganization, and they want to keep their non-residents. And we actually have a letter from a gentleman who said, because the trails reach so many people in such a large area, they needed to be a large committee. I don't disagree with any of this because the Trails Committee, as it stands, functions very independently. And to that end, I think what the board is asking and what the Trails Committee is seeing is almost two different fish. Has the Trails Committee ever thought about being UPass Trail Club and being a 501(c) and working on all the trails that you want to build and work on and be not connected to the town? Because what the town is looking for, frankly, is an advisory capacity. While it's always very interesting to get the reports of what the Trails Committee has done, I think what this board and perhaps the staff are looking for is actually an open space committee that addresses parks and trails and fire mitigation and open space to help the board manage our inventory. We don't want to be in the business of building trails. That is not our purview. And we certainly do not have any interest in eminent domain on private property. That is not our purview. What our purview is how do we take care of our open space? And so to that end, I would like to really, of course, come in and thank the volunteers, but I think we're playing in two different fields here. We don't want to see the Trails Committee go away from this passionate group, but as an advisory committee, it's not functioning in the direction we would like to see it function. We need an advisory committee who talks about, you have X miles of trails, this needs to be maintained. Now, onto a couple of the issues that I think we all feel strongly about, parking and bathrooms. Now, right now, Angie's been working on, and she got a grant for this parking study. And I think what our goal is we do want resident parking. We do want to charge people, and this will have to come up again in public comment. We should charge people for parking, if nothing else, so that we can support porta potties in town that can be cleaned and taken care of. And also this parking should also support someone who monitors and makes sure that if people are not paying for their parking, they're properly fined or towed, if that's what it comes down to. So I think we are trying to work to solve some of this. But I really think we need to think in different terms, in larger terms, about trails becoming Trails Club. And then what would be ideal, what would be perfect is if two people from your group would want to serve on the advisory open space committee, because I see all those things as intersecting, because all of our trails are on city park land and fire mitigation that needs to be done on our town park land. I mean, these things need to all be together. We all know how hard it is to populate volunteer committees. So rather than having 3 independent committees, we need to have one that serves to advise the board. Margaret, I'm calling on you next.
Okay, well, I've been furiously taking notes here. One of the things that I'd like to address is the encroachment. You know, this is the second time that an issue with the trails has been brought to the board's attention regarding trespassing on private property. And I think that there needs to be a lot better job done about that so that it doesn't get to this point at some time. You know, and both individuals that have brought this to our attention have stated that they have spoken to representatives of the trail committee. And I think the term that I've heard from both is that it was a social trail, so it was okay. And it's like, it's not okay if it's on private property. And we need to be respectful of that. As far as what we're needing to do our housekeeping here, for the 5-member board and then the trails committee, I'm looking at this and it seems to me like I agree with Jane that these are two different entities that we're looking at. And you know, having members for a board that in turn brings items to the town council, because we're the ones that ultimately do have the final say. I think that is needed because there are many times that we're finding out after the fact of things that are happening. And it just seems like we need a little more continuity and a little more communication. Jane, you addressed the issues with the restrooms. And basically this is not the first time that this issue has come up. Our facilities are not able, even without COVID and without the ability to keep it maintained the way it needs to be maintained to follow the social standards right now for COVID and sanitation and safety. Even without those restrictions, there's just too much volume for our restrooms to be able to handle all of the people. It's just too much. And this has been discussed numerous times in the past at board meetings as well. And we know there's an issue. At this point, we don't have a solution, but we are very aware of that issue. Let's see, what else? So let's see, crossing private property, can't handle the volume. And I have to tell you, I'm in favor too for some sort of a resolution, or not, resolution's not the right word because we're not making a resolution, but some way to resolve our parking issues in town, because it's just getting really out of hand. And I do agree that hopefully we'll be able to move forward with this grant to figure out what we're able to do to offer residents parking passes so that somebody, if they've got company, somebody can park on the road with a little sticker on their car or a little placard hanging from their mirror to show that they're associated with that resident, because there's just too many people that aren't willing to follow the rules. You know, and we've got to do something about the parking. It's just absolutely insane. And it's not just weekends too, because I've been working from home. I'm finally back in my office the last couple of weeks, but I've had the opportunity to actually be here in Green Mountain Falls throughout the weekdays since the middle of March, working from home. And it amazes me even that the amount of cars that are here during the middle of the day and the week. There's just a lot of traffic and a lot of cars, and it's not, I think weekends it's a little more noticeable and it's a little more inconvenient because everybody's home, but even during the weekday. And we took a hike up to the falls recently, and I agree there's a lot of trash. Maybe what we need to do is have some kind of system with the Trails Committee to do more monitoring and more cleanup in addition to maintaining and everything that they do. So, you know, we definitely need more, for lack of a better word, we need more policing by the committees that are involved in this to help keep up with everything. So, and that's I think that's all I have, unless I run across another note that I scribbled somewhere. Thank you.
All right. Deanne? We'll get
Yes.
to Clay in a moment. I'm going to ask Deanne if she has some comments from the board.
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So my understanding with the ordinance was that the town basically wanted to create something that put the advisory committees into legal compliance, not necessarily to change the committees or the way that they were functioning as they are now. So I guess I would suggest that we try and meet with each of the committees, or have, we have a lot of the comments that were received for this meeting, but it would seem best to try and come to a compromise, understanding that the town, the main goal is to just get into legal compliance and have an ordinance on the book about advisory committees. And then also for the committees to make sure that that what's written and put into the ordinance isn't dramatically changing their committee, and to see if there is a compromise that can be made. I think a lot of the suggestions, they don't seem unreasonable at all. And I think a lot of these, there can be a compromise that can be made just by some simple changes in wording. If a compromise can't be made, then I think we need to explore other options. But I think I hear what, Angie's saying, that really the whole intent of this was not to change the way that the committees are currently functioning, but merely to put the town into better compliance on the books. So I guess I would suggest that we try and figure out if there's a compromise that can be made with wording of the ordinance. With the parking issue, I just want to let the people who made public comment know that we have brought up the parking issue consistently with the last 3 meetings of which I've been in attendance of, and I think that as a board, it's been brought up enough that we are making it a priority to have it be addressed this year. I just wanted to reassure you all that what Angie was saying, that we are actively pursuing a parking plan. Some of that does take some time, but depending on how that progresses, we as a board, we've been bringing it up, and at least I can say on my part that I do want to see it be made a priority this year. And I guess those will be my main comments.
All right, Johnny, thank you. Clay, you had a quick comment?
Yeah. What are you going to do to keep people off of my property? And are you going to continue to keep handing out these trail maps? The trail maps show trails right across my private property, and people are up there every day. That has got to stop. There's no,
I agree.
I've put signs up and they're tearing them down. What are they supposed to do? I've confronted people on the trail and told them, and they go, the trail map says I can be here, and they pretty much tell me I'm full of it. But something has got to be done. I spoke to Virgil. Well, it's not in the city limits. There's nothing I can do about it, was his deal, because I am right on the border. So I've spoken to El Paso County. I'm getting sort of the same lip service. Do I have to go up there with my shotgun to keep people off? Because that's going to get us all in a bunch of trouble. But I guarantee you, I'm going to sue the town, and it's not going to be a cheap deal because you're trespassing. That has got to stop now. There better not be any more trail maps out there, because I've spoken to Dick Bratton about this for the last 10 years, and he knows exactly what I'm talking about. But he looks the other way, hems and haws. Well, it's not going to matter. And I've not been pushed it until all the problems that we are having right now. And I know of Donna Everly's land. There's land of the guy up at the very end of the property, the rich guy that bought McAfee's place. There's 2 people up the canyon with private property. I'm going to be talking to all of them. And if they have the same issue, you're going to be looking at a class action lawsuit instead of just a lawsuit. So like I said, there better be something done to keep those people off of that property now, because I will be up there this weekend, and I will be armed, and I will be pissed. So I will be calling to talk about this a little further because I don't want to go to jail over the blatant disregard for private property that the Trails Committee has. And the Trails Committee reflects back on you, Jane, and it's going to be the town that gets sued, not the Trails Committee, because they're just a bunch of out-of-town volunteers that have no skin in the game here in town. We do. So I don't want to get to this upset and to get to where I have to take it into my own hands. But I will be calling to talk to you and Angie and figure out what's going to be done before this weekend.
All right.
No waiting around. And there better not be any more trail maps put out there.
I'd like to get the trail maps collected that are posted around town so that we can investigate the encroachments and move forward appropriately.
Angie, can we meet and I will show you?
Please, yes.
I can show you on that. I will call you tomorrow and I can show you on the trail maps. You're showing trails that are on national forest, non-sanctioned forest trails, and you're showing it. You're maintaining trails on national forest. I read about it in the Trails Committee meetings. You're talking about taking barbed wire off of the trail from the platform to the summit of Mount Dewey. That's all on my property. They're talking about cutting oak trees and maintaining the trails west of the Teller County line. That's on the Forest Service. Your Trails Committee just thinks that all the property everywhere up there is they can do with it what they want. And that has got to stop. I want fences built and signage put up. When you leave my property, it says entering historic Green Mountain Falls. It doesn't say entering private property when you're going the other way. Why couldn't they put, they don't want that. The old trail, they built a new trail to tie in the old trail. That is not right.
We definitely, let's meet tomorrow, Clay, and get it worked out if we can.
I will talk to you, Angie, because I don't want to end up in court.
No, and none of us want
Or in
that. If we
jail.
can avoid it. I would also ask that all the maps be collected, the ones that are out there, because we can't be promoting, any sort of trespass. So let's ask that those
Does
be
any
collected.
of the Trails people have any comments? Dick, what do you think about what I'm saying? Or Black?
That's all right. Can I say something first? I'd like to say, in addition to gathering up the maps, I think at this point we need to request that no additional maps be placed until this is resolved.
We need to shut the trails down until this is resolved. The Mount Dewey Trail needs to be shut. If there's not something built, if we can't get fences built and signage up, the Mount Dewey Trail needs to be shut down now.
I think
How
until this is
Can I
resolved,
interject
we
here?
need to do that.
The Mount Dewey Trail that intersects Clay's property and others is private property. So I don't know if you can shut the trail down, but you certainly can shut down the access to it, which is at the end of Myrtle Street. The point being that the longer the Trails Committee and the town stays involved with that piece of private property, you're putting yourself in jeopardy legally and with your insurer. So something needs to be done. But again, that's not town property. That's private property. And there's another, on the other side of town, there's another trail that's on private property in the old Wallace property.
That's the other ones I'm talking
So
about,
the
Matt.
town needs to be divorced from private property completely. Thank you.
And it is not the town's practice, or at least not a practice that I would encourage to do. We don't do any work on private property. So this is definitely something that is very concerning, and I would agree that we need to address it appropriately.
Yeah, we do need to get to the bottom of this.
Does anybody on the Trails Committee have a comment?
Well, if you let us have a word edgewise, sir, I'm Rocco Blasi, the chairman of the committee. I took 8 coils of rusted barbed wire down from historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation land. There's no posted signs up there, so I would
You
really—
took them down. I put them up there.
I have the floor. I would really discourage you from going up there with a weapon, and instead, if you think it's private property, post it legally.
All right, we're not having any more. I'm gonna get to the bottom of this with Angie tomorrow. Clay and I will be talking with Angie. Catherine, I need your comments, and then we're gonna have some decision discussions.
Can I ask one question? Just one, not on that, but Angie, you mentioned a study for the parking. Could you elaborate just a little bit on that?
Do you mind, Mayor? Madam Mayor?
Please go ahead with that, and then we need to get to Catherine.
All right, just in the interest of time, I'll be very brief. There is a comprehensive signage and parking plan grant that we did receive the award. Right now, that contract for that grant is in legal review. So we have not accepted that grant award yet, but that was from the Kirkpatrick Family Foundation and the amount of $35,000. Initially, that project could kick off very soon, and I'm hoping that people that are passionate about signage and parking improvements, might be willing to get involved and help us map the signage. We do have 16 miles of road, and I need to cut that up in half-mile or mile increments and have folks go out there and just on a lazy Saturday and be willing to just write down, help us map those signs, so we've got something to start with on the signage side. Virgil and I are going to come up with the parking options to bring to that stakeholders group. And then we would have a draft with some options that would go through a public process, through the public meeting and all the fun stuff. So that's a really exciting project. It will take some time, but and not everybody's going to be happy with the result, but it sure will be better than it is now.
Thank you.
Catherine, are you on there?
Yes, thanks. Yeah, I want to also voice my appreciation for the work that the Trails Committee does. They're always volunteering, not just for trails, but for the cleanup days that we have in town along the creek. And yeah, it's a very dedicated group of volunteers, and that's really commendable. I have been concerned about liability in relationship to the Trails Committee. I heard them describe themselves as fiercely independent, and that does not seem to me to be an appropriate description for a municipal committee. I feel like as a board member, I hear about what they've done. It's not really responsive to the board. The Trails Committee, as Rocco mentioned, just wants to be left alone. And there's a path for you to maintain your independence, but to maintain your independence and to be part of the municipal government doesn't really sync up. And I've been concerned about this liability issue for a long time. We've been fortunate that we haven't been sued by property owners in the past. We certainly had a cause to sue, but people don't want to sue the town of Green Mountain Falls, thankfully. So if we can come to a compromise, that's great. But I haven't heard anything from the Trails Committee that sounds like they're willing to compromise. But I don't want to put words in your mouth. If you're willing to come to some kind of agreement, that would be great. Thank you.
So as Catherine said, this is the third time in 11 years that the Trails Committee has existed that we have had someone very upset because of encroachment, because of trespass, because of connecting trails where there wasn't permission to connect trails. And I will say this, it's usually done out of an abundance of enthusiasm. Enthusiasm's great, but we have to land firmly on the side of the law. And the law states that your property is your property. This current situation, we're gonna deal, Clay and Angie and I are gonna have a discussion, see where we're going with that. But what is on the table before us today, board, is an ordinance. And the ordinance seems to be, for the most part, okay with everybody except for trails. And again, I will state that what I see is I'd like to see an open space committee that addresses all of these things, but actually would have a conduit and an interface with this very independent, fiercely independent UPass Trails Club, which I would wholeheartedly encourage the 11 members to consider becoming a 501(c) and making themselves available to other trails in the area. And it may be easier for them when they want to connect with Chiquita Park rather than having an overreach of the Green Mountain Falls government into private property and into other governmental properties and into El Paso County. I would strongly encourage that. And I would like the Trails Committee to encourage that, because in no way do I want to even have it implied that I'm trying to disband that committee, because I am not. What I see it as is it's time for the committee to be a club and to be independent, but to have 2 of their members who will serve on our advisory committee so that we have an advisory committee rather than just a reporting body. Because we have a reporting body, but we don't always have anything we can weigh in on. It's usually we're being told what is happening more than we're being advised what needs to happen, including things like maintenance and so forth. And I think we can get to a compromise on this. So board, as I see it, the question before us is, do we pass this ordinance? Do we discuss it again? Do we get more advice? Do we give any other options? Margaret, what do you think?
Well, I don't have a problem tabling this until our next board meeting, just for additional input. Obviously for more time for Trails to discuss what they would like to do moving forward. I know one of the things, and I'm sorry, this is a little going back a little bit, but you know, one of the things that discouraged me was one of the statements saying that we didn't give any notice to anyone when Angie sent out the email that she sent out. And we'd only discussed this at our last board meeting, and I felt like it was completely appropriate at that point for Angie to send that out, because that was the notification for people to have time. And if they feel like they need more time to review it objectively, then I don't have a problem with that. So, but that's my opinion. I mean, we can do whatever the majority wants to do tonight. If we want to vote for it, that's fine, but I'm okay with giving them more time for, if they need more time to overlook it objectively.
I do have a suggestion. I would like Angie to have a discussion with our attorney about some of this current situation.
Absolutely. And I did hear in there, but I just want to clarify, Jane, you mentioned something about making it an open space committee with that sort of does all these things, parks, rec, trails, and fire mitigation, rather than separate committees.
Wouldn't that be Parks and Rec?
It's an open space.
I'm sorry, wouldn't that be our Parks and Rec committee? Sorry.
Right.
Well, whatever we term it, it makes sense to me to have a 5-member committee that oversees parks, trails, open space, fire mitigation, because all those things intersect. And it's an advisory committee to the board, so that if we do have different groups of whatever sort, we're getting good advice to the board, because we don't want report after the fact. We want to be able to vote and actually control the ordinances, the legislation, the legalities in our town. Because sometimes I think we know what this is. It's very hard to get enough people to populate 5 different committees. So let's have one committee that addresses open space, that has those components within it. And I think that way we can have a working government committee, not a committee. Here's where I see that where we branch off from trails. Trails, God love them, want to get in there, do the work, build the trails, pick up the trash, be active. What we need is a governmental committee that helps us define the boundaries and the rules. And I think that's where we're at an impasse. We need the advisory committee, and we have a committee who likes and all the commendations in the world to go and do the work. And that's not what a governmental committee does. That's where I'm at with that.
As 5 voting members of an open space committee, and then I'm hearing subcommittees, for Parks, Rec, Trails, and fire mitigation. Like Parks, Rec, and Trails would be together as one, fire mitigation would be together as one. But the 5 voting members, that wouldn't preclude people from volunteer participating still. That would just have the 5 voting members. But then
Yeah, not at all. And then they could
participate on subcommittees.
And we could have people who are also, their passion perhaps is the downtown park, but maybe their passion is our open space parks.
Okay. Sorry for the brain damage. I had to get the structure down in my head.
Well, and that's just what I'm saying. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks about that,
Okay.
but that's it looks like something that would be small and light and functional going forward, but it doesn't preclude anyone from volunteering and helping on physical labor type activities. Jenny, does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, I would agree also, just to the sheer amount of discussion that we've had on it tonight and the amount of letters. I think that, that we do need probably more time for people to digest and respond so that we can adequately understand their concerns and come to some type of compromise between what we're trying to achieve with complying with the law and achieving governmental duties with also respecting the work that's being done in the community. And so I would also be in favor of giving a little bit more time before we vote on this.
All right, Catherine?
I agree with allowing more time. I don't see that there's a rush other than addressing the concerns of private property owners.
And to that end, I think we need to post at the trailhead of Mount Dewey and perhaps at the main trailhead in town that Mount Dewey Trail is closed until we resolve this, because that's just a big no. That's a hard stop for me, that we need to get that resolved.
Would you like to consult your trail committee on this?
I would like to consult with you after we consult with the first group with Clay and with Angie, and I'd like to meet with you and Angie as well. And I think we need to make this lean and trim and see what we can get together and see what the 2 sides are and see where we can go. But I think as of now, let's put a hard stop there until we can come to a discussion on this. All right?
I was ready to advise you on a trail related issue, which is part of our charter, but I will stand by. I just don't know what you want.
Well, I want to come to a decision on what's going on here. But this is an issue that we can't really adjudicate right now because it wasn't properly noticed. But I think we can come to a discussion point within the next few days. Are you going to be available for a conference call within this week?
I am happy to advise you.
Perfect. So let's make sure that we get that done.
Hey, Jane, can I ask what trails are being worked on? Is that going to be affected by this moratorium on voting, or things are just going to go on for another month, or is that a valid question?
And that's actually a question for Rocco. I don't know what trails are being worked on. I don't know if any of them are being, or what the planned work day is. Rocco, do you have that?
So the latest public health directive from the state limits trail work crews to 10 people. What the trail committee has done is we have pulled advertising for volunteers on our 1 a month volunteer work days, because we fill up our 10 people with committee members and consistent volunteers. I was out today with a group of 4 people on Catamount Trail, and I could tell you that trash was not an issue. I've been going out on a weekly basis on the trails. I have not seen an increase in trash. But we are out there monitoring, we are inspecting the trails, and we are keeping them safe.
Good. Thank you. So board, it sounds like you wish to table this. Well, actually, let's not table it. Let's continue it. Let's have this as a continuance for the next meeting. And if you're satisfied with what we're doing between now and then, we can close this particular agenda item and we will continue it. So the motion is to continue this item until the July 7th meeting.
This is Deanne, I second.
Any second. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
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 All right, we will continue this and we will revisit, and we will have some discussions between times, so we'll have more information. All right. Going back to the agenda.
So
Is there
Jane, are
any
you going to
further-
shut Mount Dewey? Are you going to shut the trail down
Yes,
on Mount Dewey?
we are for now until we get some further information.
Thank you.
So I did request that we post that Mount Dewey is closed until, well, and we actually need to vote on that. Thank you. I'm making a motion that we close Mount Dewey until we come to a resolution on the private property issue.
I'll second.
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor vote by saying aye.
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 And that motion passes, and we will get to the bottom of that. Item 6 is public input. If there is anyone who has an item that is not on the agenda and you are properly registered, now is your time. Anybody, Angie? Seeing none, item 7 is correspondence, and you have received the correspondence we have received about Trails Committee. Again, I appreciate everyone's correspondence that they have put in, and written down a lot of the words that have come out of that, and that is a lot of food for thought, and I think it should be for everyone. Item 8 is, and is there any further correspondence other than those letters pertaining to trail?
No.
All right, thank you. Item 8 is reports. This was a 2-meeting month for us, so I don't have any further reports. Catherine, do you?
Just that Victor Matthews, who's our new administrative assistant, is helping us with the summer 2020 Summer of Good Neighbors, and he's inviting anyone to share photographs, stories of neighbors helping neighbors. And so I encourage anyone that would like to contribute to do so. you can contact Victor Matthews at the town hall.
That's great, and we're glad he's doing that, and welcome to Victor. Margaret, any report?
Not really anything to report. I do have a comment. Angie, I really, really, really appreciate the job that you're doing, keeping us on track. And I know a lot of times you get beat up, and sometimes people don't understand all the behind the scenes things, but you've just been stellar since you've started working for the town. And I just want to publicly acknowledge that and let you get the recognition that you deserve, because you really are keeping us on track in so many ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. I really appreciate that. And it's because of the awesome staff that you have, Virgil and Julia, and now Victor and Juliana. But we really have a great team here, and our public works team is super dedicated. So thank you.
Yep, we're very, very lucky. Thank you. Johnny, do you have a report?
Nothing new to report. I just also want to second her, the last comment that was made, and to just acknowledge my appreciation for all the volunteers. From what I've seen in the meetings that I've attended and what I see around town with all of the volunteer work, there are a lot of really good people who live and work in this town with very good intentions. And I just want to recognize that, from everything that I've been hearing, there are a lot of passionate people out there with very good intentions. I also want to acknowledge all the comments that were made tonight and that we are taking them very seriously. And so I just want to make sure that that's stated, very clearly.
I agree, and I appreciate that as well. I think people don't always know all the consideration that goes on. Where we're lucky is working in government. We're so much subject to the Open Records Act, and so much of what we do, nearly everything, everybody sees. And it's a wonderful thing, and I appreciate all of our work. So with that, Angie, do you have any further report?
I've got one. Speaking of our dedicated public works team, they've been doing maintenance on the equipment, and the road grader is ready to go. So on Thursday, road maintenance will resume, regular road maintenance per the schedule. We did post the schedule on Facebook and on our website. And so I just want to give them a big thanks and something to be thankful for. Moving in the right direction.
Thank you. I do want to acknowledge again Darlene, who went and planted flowers and cleaned up everywhere in the downtown corridor. We used to call the people who planted flowers the guerrilla gardeners, because they did it without any of us knowing. And I just am glad we can finally acknowledge someone for being a guerrilla gardener, and I appreciate it very much. Virgil, are you still on?
Hang on. Yeah, there we go.
Do you have any further report?
No, I really don't. I'm doing the best I can with what I've got and dealing with current state of world affairs. It's getting tougher and tougher.
Well, there's a lot of challenges, and I just want to say publicly, I think we're very lucky we have you. You're a wonderful addition to this town. Your idea of community policing is what this town needs, and we're glad you're our law enforcement.
Thank you very much. And Clay and Angie, I want to be on that call with you guys tomorrow. Just let me know when, and we'll figure out where lines are and what I can do, what I can't do, and who we need to call in to do the rest of it.
Excellent. Excellent. We'll make this happen.
Sending pictures to Victor so he can post those on the Summer of Good Neighbors page. That's all.
Yep. We're going to keep working Summer of Good Neighbors. With that being said, Angie, do we have an executive session tonight?
We do. There's a link that I sent in your email for that.
Great. So I need to ask the public if they could sign off at this time, because executive session is pursuant to the CRS 246402E. It is for the purpose of matters that may be subject to negotiation. Developing strategy for negotiations and/or instructing negotiators. I appreciate everyone who has been on tonight, and we won't do a vote unless it's in public. So if you will sign off, we will have a chance to talk again.
I thought I saw a separate link.
There is a totally separate link for that one. We can, in the email,
Okay.
if we want, we can just pop over into that. Victor should have that one up here, if not right now, within a matter of a minute.
Okay. So that's what we're doing. We're logging in.
Yep, we can
Yep.
sign off and then pop back into another meeting. So that way we don't get any
Okay, I am not seeing the link for that.
I think it was an email that just came through because I accidentally clicked on that one first. So.
Okay. All right. Let
You
me
see
sign
that?
out of this and sign into that.
Okay, see you in a minute.
Perfect.
I'm
Thank
going to
you.
stop recording.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, I can't because Angie's the